Recently, we had a conversation with Brock Heasley about the faith-based science fiction film, The Shift. And today, we're going to be going a little bit deeper into the conversation with him, talking about his faith, what it means to him, and how it affects how he interacts with the world around him. Well, I would love to learn more about you, man. What do you geek out about? What is your big geekdom? I can assume maybe sci-fi, but maybe there's more to it.
Yeah, I mean, look, comics. Like I've been about comics since I was a kid. I've made some of my own.
Right.
If I'm reading anything, I mean, I read all kinds of things, but I've always got a graphic novel or two that's on my desk that I'm pouring through. Right now, I'm pouring through the Tom Strong Compendium, which is a book that Alan Moore did with Chris Sprouse and a bunch of other artists. And
Right.
I'd never had the entire series, so I got the compendium, which has the entire series. So I'm just ripping through that. Um, that's a big one. Yeah, sci-fi is big. I love the thinking man sci-fi.
Right.
I love to go to the movies and turn off my brain, but I probably love to turn my brain on more.
Right.
And I think if people are going into the shift, I think they should expect a little bit of that. Yeah, it's
Right.
going to play with your heart a little bit, but if you're not coming out of the movie thinking for a long time, then I haven't done my job very well.
I got you.
And I think people are having that experience.
That's awesome. Well, speaking of comics from earlier, what is Super Fogies?
Super Fogies is the most ridiculous title for a comic that I have been doing for a very long time,
Right.
kind of as a side project in my spare time. Initially, it was something that I wrote and drew and created by myself. It's about a group of retired superheroes and supervillains who live in Valhalla, home for the
Wow.
super tired. And
Super.
it starts off as a total like just joke. It was really just my attempt at making a funny comic strip, and very quickly it develops into kind of this epic tale of gosh, just like every single trope and convention that I love in superhero comics, all piled on top of each other, and done through this really unique perspective.
Right.
Because we don't usually get older superheroes in our comics,
Right.
and I thought it was so interesting to explore, people who have this shared history, who are kind of stuck together,
Right.
and what would that be like, and how would they see their lives? And so it's ridiculous, um, but anybody who has dug into it, I think they find that there's a lot of depth there. It's one of my most favorite things I've created, and I think we only have two chapters left.
Oh, wow.
Right now, I don't draw it anymore.
Mhm.
A very very talented artist by the name of Mark Lapierre, is the artist on it now, and we are on a bit of a hiatus at the moment.
Mhm.
But we are behind the scenes cranking out our penultimate chapter, and
Wow.
the story will conclude here fairly soon.
Very cool, man. How did you come to faith? That's an interesting question for people to know.
Yeah, so I was raised to believe. My parents
Okay.
were both Christians from the get go, at least from the get go in terms of when I came along, um, and but that doesn't really tell the whole story,
Mhm.
because if we're honest about our approach to faith, we come to a point in which we want to know for ourselves, where we're not relying upon the testimony of others or the witness of others, where we have to decide for ourselves, what do I really believe? Do I actually believe that there's a God out there?
Yeah.
And I came to a point where I was like, you know what? I'm not really so sure. I think maybe not.
Mm.
Um, but I wanted to believe.
Yeah.
And so I had a period of time in my life. It was during high school when I really was seeking for a confirming witness.
Yeah.
And I achieved that. I was able to. I had a profound experience that I won't get into too much here, but I had a profound experience that told me that God is a reality. My Savior is a reality,
Mhm.
and He loves me, and He's done something extraordinary for me,
So
and He's
good.
got my back.
Yeah.
And that's been a defining moment for me for my life.
Awesome, man. Glad to hear that. Faith is a big portion of your life, but I know that in the past you've worked in secular projects. You worked on a film called The Gallows, Act Two
Hmm.
specifically. What's it
Yeah.
like going from working in a secular world to working in a faith-based Christian world?
Yeah, so it's pretty wild. It's a pretty big swing. I did come into the film industry in horror films, and that's one of my credits. And to be honest, I'm not a giant horror film fan. It was kind of my way in, and
Okay.
I think it was after working on The Gallows Act Two, that I realized that I had other stories that I wanted to tell, and so
Hmm.
that kind of in a way prompted a shift into the shift,
Right.
to where I was like, okay, I've learned the craft enough to where I feel like I can now go out and strike out on my own a little bit more, and really focus on the stories that I want to tell. And I think that's actually a really helpful experience to have, to know what stories you don't want to tell,
Yeah.
um, because that gives me the strength to say no,
Yeah.
and to just dedicate my energies and my time to the things that are important to me, which is nothing against the work I did on the gallows, or that movie or anything.
Sure.
I think even horror movies, although I don't personally enjoy them that much,
Right.
have merit to them. And so I'm not trying to disparage any of that.
Right.
But as far as what I want to do personally, yes, I have made this swing into faith, but I still am sticking with genre. I still think it's important to do genre because it's not done enough. It's not done at all.
Yeah.
I think we've been getting a lot of true stories and a lot of um, kind of, I don't know. I look at the faith film landscape, and I see a lot of the kind of the same kind of thing,
Right.
and that's fine. Like, there are people who love them, and some of them are very, very well made, and so that's not to
Sure.
take anything away from them. I'm just arguing for more of a breadth of content.
Yeah.
Let's have more stories. Let's have other types of stories, and that's what I'm trying to bring to the table.
I know you have another short called the 205th, which kind of
Yes.
has like a suspense, almost a horror type of feel to it. Some from the trailer stuff I saw of it. Is
Yeah.
that a future project that you may be coming to a feature film down the road also one day, or is that just
Yeah.
another kind of like you're experimenting with genres?
I mean, definitely that was an experiment. That one was probably a little bit more intentional in terms of the way it was set up. I was did that short film with the express purpose of turning it into a feature film,
Right.
whereas the shift, that was not that way when it started. So this 205th is definitely something I hope to get back to
Hmm.
someday. I have some pretty solid ideas about how to turn that into a feature film, but let's see how the shift goes. Maybe I'll get that chance.
Awesome. Very cool. Did you guys enjoy that conversation with Brock and his faith and how it affects his world on a regular basis? Click the link on the screen if you guys want to see the conversation go a little bit deeper as we do a lightning round talking about all the things that he likes to geek out about. Also, don't forget to check the links down below if you guys want to go a little bit deeper into the conversation with Brock himself on social media and how to find the shift in your local theater and how to request it for your local theater. Until next time, stay devoted, peace and love.